Good morning, YouTube. It is Coffee Talk with Haze, episode 20. Today I want to talk about my favorite video game of all time, Dark Souls. But before we can talk about Dark Souls, we got to talk about a game before that, Demon Souls. And before we talk about Demon Souls, we got to talk about everything else that came before that. And hopefully we're going to talk about all the stuff that came after Dark Souls. So I can't really decide on where to start. I kind of want to just bounce back and forth. To be honest, this is my third attempt at doing this video, and there's not going to be a fourth, so this is going to be it. If you see this, then I succeeded. The other two attempts, long story short, this is a really hard subject to keep focused on and to keep, I think, relevant to people who play synthesizers and who don't even necessarily play video games at all. Or maybe you do play video games and you like games like Minecraft instead. Hey, I love Minecraft, don't get me wrong. But Dark Souls and Demon Souls, the Souls games, are exactly unlike Minecraft and Skyrim for that matter. They're more like the Grand Theft Auto games. But again, as you can see, I'm already starting to get all over the place. So where to start? Well, let me start back, I guess, a little bit with myself and my upbringings with video games. Goes all the way back to the 70s. I started with the Magnavox Odyssey, also had the Atari 2600. I had access to the Mattel Intellivision, the ColecoVision. After that, we started getting into the home computer revolution, and at my house I had the Texas Instruments TI 994A. My parents had an Apple II Plus that was used for a family business, and after that things just started getting kind of vanilla and boring when it was just IBM and Microsoft, and the PC generation was born. After that was CD-ROM, and what was kind of cool about CD-ROM was that was about the time when the first-person shooter games were all just taking off. So I was a huge fan of Castle Wolfenstein 3D because I'd actually already played Castle Wolfenstein on the Apple back in the early 80s. And that led, Castle Wolfenstein 3D led, of course, to Doom, which led to the whole entire first-person shooter just explosion, really. And what was after that? Consoles. Yeah, so not everybody, of course, made the switch to consoles. But I went from consoles to computers, back to consoles. It's a whole nother story. But there was a game that I wanted to play called Thief 3. I was a huge fan of the Thief series that came out in the late 90s. They were possibly the first stealth series to hit the market. Well, let me back up. The first stealth kind of first-person shooter. Surely there were other ones before that. I mean, well, in fact, Castle Wolfenstein itself was a stealth game, right? To a degree. Good coffee, by the way. And I wanted to play Thief 3, so I upgraded my sound card, my video card, purchased the game, and it didn't work. So rather than play the dance and try to figure out how to get everything to work, I just took it all back to the store I bought it from and exchanged it for an Xbox and a stack of video games this high. The problem was having to learn how to use the dual joysticks. I'm a huge fan of keyboard and mouse. I think that is a much superior interface for especially first-person shooters. The dual joysticks, one can learn to adjust. There are people out there that are amazingly good at it. You could even buy very expensive controllers that have much better resolution, and like most controllers are just never going to get that kind of resolution that the mouse is going to give you for aiming. But you can get expensive controllers. I'm not going to do that. Honestly, like for me, gaming and games are supposed to be like a pastime to get rid of stress, not to add stress. So you may be asking yourself, well, why would I love Dark Souls then? Because this is supposed to be one of the most notoriously hard games to play, very, very stressful. Well, the reason why is because subverted expectations. It's one of my favorite concepts. I don't know how to explain it. It's something where you walk into it expecting something and you get something else. Now, most of the time, this is not what you paid for and you're very much unsatisfied with the results. But sometimes you're much, much better off. You actually are much happier with the results that you get. It's a complete surprise and you're much, much happier for it. I think the older we get, the more we don't want surprises if they're going to be bad news, but good surprises are always a nice kind of kick in the butt to refresh us and get us going again. Maybe the youth prefer that more than the elderly. I don't know. So I guess what I'm trying to press upon you is that I've had a rich history of video game and gaming, computer games, Mostly my favorites are the role-playing genre games that came from the Dungeons and Dragons era, because I was very much into Dungeons and Dragons when I was a child in the 70s. The problem as I got older and moved into the 80s is that I found that for whatever reason in my neighborhood I could not find anybody who wanted to play Dungeons and Dragons. You have to have a really good dungeon master to pull it all off. Otherwise it's just a brawl in a bar. It's ridiculous. It's no fun. And what computers at that time offered were a slew of Dungeons and Dragons inspired role-playing games where the computer is now the dungeon master. And there's no questioning that dungeon master unless you actually get in and hack the game itself. But for the most part, what you're dealing with is a wonderful experience right out of the box with a fair and just dungeon master, impartial, who is just trying to present an experience to you that you will hopefully enjoy. And of these games, there was the Ultima series, the Bard's Tale series, the Might and Magic series, the original Might and Magic role-playing games, not the strategic battling games that came about in the CD-ROM era of the 90s, and a few others like Fantasy. Perhaps the best advanced Dungeons and Dragons game ever made, because it was an official advanced Dungeons and Dragons product. I can't remember the name of the company, whatever, was Pools of Radiance by SSI, the software company. Hands down the best Dungeons and Dragons experience I've ever seen on a computer game. Oh, I highly recommend it if you could play it. It's kind of hard to get up and running, but it is possible, and you will be rewarded if you don't mind the older graphics. The good thing about this game is that the primitive graphics don't necessarily make the experience suffer, because everything kind of looks like nice little sprites. So you get the feeling that you're playing a traditional Nintendo system, from the late 80s, early 90s type kind of game. It's pretty cool. So, okay, I think that's sufficient background to kind of get into Dark Souls, because this is very, very interesting. I do need to talk about a few more things, though. Namely, Grand Theft Auto, the Grand Theft Auto series, and the Elder Scrolls series. I think the reason why is because of the mechanics involved, and you have to understand that let's back up a little bit, sorry. With the coin-op era, you put a quarter in and you got 3 men, 3 lives, whatever. You may get a free life as a result, but let's just say you get 3 men per quarter. It means you got to have a lot of money to play the game, or a lot of skill. And people developed a lot of skill. Now, at some point, they changed it to be 50 cents a play, and you would just keep throwing in quarters to keep, adding more time and more lives. And yeah. That's when, I don't necessarily blame the companies that did that. One of them in particular, they're the people that gave us Mortal Kombat. But they are, unfortunately, one of the people that said, hey, you know what, we want to take as much money as possible, so just keep chugging your money in and just keep chugging your money in. Okay, whatever. They made some great games, though. They really, really did. And so, getting off the beaten path. You see, this is a really, 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 really hard video to make. Hard topic to talk about. So, now when we get into home computers, we now have hard drives in the concept of saving and restoring states. Save files, whatever you want to call them. So now we can make bad choices, figure out what the game wants us to do, reload a known save state, that's where we're safe, continue with the game, and just, solve the puzzle that way. It's always possible to reach out, and back in the day we had a number we could call. If you don't mind paying, $3 a minute or whatever it was for long distance phone calling, but you could call a hotline that the company had open, and somebody would tell you, try to get you stuck out of the game. That was the best that we had. Going into the 90s, we did have some bulletin board systems, but, they could help you if the people on there had the experience with it. Going into the 90s with, AOL and that kind of stuff, bringing in more people together, communication, things got a little bit better, but we also started to see the game guide showing up. People would publish these game guides that would cost anywhere from $12 to $20. So you could also purchase a game guide, and that would help you get through the game. But the difference between not being able to save your game and saving your game changes the dynamics, and it also changes the gamer. What I'm getting at is that this evolution of being able to save our games has created what I call the lazy gamer. The casual gamer, even if you will. And there's nothing wrong with that, really. Because again, right, this is a pastime. We're playing games to relieve stress, not induce stress. The thing is, though, is that there's this level of skill that gets added to it, and yeah, we start to devilishly hang on to that and want to accelerate that portion. What am I trying to say? Sorry, it's a little esoteric there. Is that competition kicks in, is what I'm trying to say. And with competition comes stress. So with any pastime, there's going to be a level of competition inevitably. And even though we're doing it to get away from stress, we're also always going to be bringing stress in. So at some point you have to invite that. You just have to invite it in. And I would like to say that the Dark Souls games do this. But again, hang on. Please hang on. I'm going to try to get through this portion so we can get past it and maybe get to something that's more relevant to synthesizers and what we're dealing with today. So the Skyrim games, the Elder Scroll games, which so far has just culminated in Skyrim. That's the last one they made. Well, that's the last one that they made. They were really, really cool, but it's like we've moved past that. This talk is a talk of evolution, by the way. We've moved past that, most people, myself included. Skyrim was definitely a game that invited, I'm just going to save my state and keep doing this over and over, loading and saving until I get the results that I want. And it's like, real life doesn't work that way at all. So these games, even though they offer a really nice escape into a fantasy world where you can role play and where you can really, really feel some true excitement as the story progresses and you are being part of the story and you are actually making things, like changing the course of history in this game. It loses something. It loses something about it. And the Grand Theft Auto games, even though they're not the first to do this, we can even say like Mario World 64. And of course the Super Mario games themselves. You couldn't save your game necessarily. So with Super Mario 64 and the Grand Theft Auto games, you had to complete a mission, come back to like a home base kind of thing, and you could sort of save your game that way. But the idea was that you couldn't just get halfway through the mission and then save your game and then see how the outcome works that way. No. You got to start and finish it. Well, the Dark Souls games take that all the way back to the beginning, where it's not that you don't save your game, it's that the game is constantly saving. So every action you make has permanent consequences. If you accidentally kill a merchant, oops, oh well. See, I like games that will allow you to cut off your ability to solve the main quest line. It's just a game, folks. You know what I'm saying? So if a game does that, that means you're going to have more replay value out of it. And replay value for me is everything. Now I think I may be able to start pulling this into synthesizers and the current state of marketing of said synthesizers. Replay value, right? It's not having to keep up with the Joneses in the sense that I need to buy this year's new crop of synthesizers just because they're new and just because other people are buying them and just because if I don't have them, then I'm not going to be like them. They're going to have synthesizers that I don't have, and they're going to have the new stuff, and I'm not going to have the new stuff, and they're going to get more views, and people are just going to always go to the views, and If you want to play that game, go right ahead. The same thing is happening in, just to give you one example of the gaming community, the Dark Souls world right now. So, now let me talk finally about Demon Souls and Dark Souls. And namely how it started as one person's vision was a massive success and then forced the industry itself to, oh, okay, that's what we're doing. But then in the process completely co-opted the very thing itself and then just shoved it back down into its cage and then just repeated a bunch of crap and sold that back to the consumers. So Demon Souls was created by a guy named, well, actually it wasn't created by Miyazaki. We'll get to that. It's a company called From Software. They were very successful software company out of Japan. Made some really cool games like Armored Core, King's Landing, and I think they made a lot of Sony games for like the original Sony PlayStation 1 and 2. Demon's Souls was what they call a PlayStation 3 exclusive. It was only available for the PlayStation 3, and it wasn't an exclusive. It was just that it was turned into an exclusive. Nobody cared about Demon's Souls at all. Not even From Software, really. The only thing that From Software was using the Demon's Souls project for was to keep its current round of developers on board, currently working on something, keeping their skills sharp, maybe allowing juniors to elevate themselves into a more mid-level position. Companies do this. It's very valuable to them to have a project that is not always going to just turn a profit for them, but is also going to allow their employees to be happy and stay on board, and to also elevate their skill set and stay on board. That's the important thing. Not go to work for somebody else. So Demon's Souls was one of these games where it wasn't necessarily a failed game, but it wasn't slated to be a success. Miyazaki, I don't know what his position was at the time, but he talked to his superiors and convinced them to let him take over that project to become the director of the entire game. I don't know if it was called Demon's Souls back then or if he changed the name to Demon's Souls. How much of it was already developed? See, he didn't start the game from what I understand. He just picked it up and turned it into his own game. Let me repeat myself for what I just said just then. He took this project and he used it to make his own personal video game for himself with online capability. This game had virtually zero advertisement. They didn't care about it. It's amazing that it even got distributed at all, that it got produced, manufactured, and distributed. But X number of copies were sent out and sold mostly in Japan, where once people kind of got into it, I mean, my first experience with it was, wow, this is something new. Like, seriously, like when I went through the first time I went through the tutorial, we'll cast aside all expectations I had and why I got into the game in the first place altogether, was that this is really wild. And then going into it, once you get past the tutorial, was like, this is really hard. And if you get past the first boss and the game slowly starts to open up, you realize this is massive. And if you start to play a little bit more and more and more, you realize this is way beyond massive. What it boils down to is there's no instructions to the game, really. I mean, yeah, they give you some instructions and kind of tell you about the mechanics of the fighting, but no, it's great. It's brilliant. Like, it literally is like, here you go. You go figure it out. They don't care. Who does that? Who does that? That's like suicide for your product. Seriously. It's just, again, it helps if if you're already standing on the shoulders of giants, They know that they're going to get their money back from software, whoever Bandai's distributing. Is not Bandai, whatever. Well, it doesn't matter. Bandai does Dark Souls, I believe, which is the topic of this video. We're here on Demon's Souls. But I'm really trying to press upon you that it was all, the game was a success by word of mouth. And it was a huge success. It wasn't just, oh, hey, look, people like this. It was like, whoa, this is really good. This is like, all the copies are sold, pretty much, I think I got the only used copy of Demon's Souls when I purchased it. I was lucky that there was one available, I think. I mean, you could still buy it, brand new. I don't know, I have to look that up, but for whatever reason, it was successful enough for From Software to launch a deal with the next distributor and come out with Dark Souls. Now this time, I believe, was interesting. I think that, Miyazaki definitely had total control over the game, but From Software was like, okay, we got a moneymaker, so we're going to, control the distribution and make sure that we have a wide distribution. So they made sure that it was also ported to PC and to the Xbox consoles as well, because they wanted as much money as possible. And I will say to this day, Dark Souls is hands down my favorite game. Bar none. To me, that also means it's probably it's the best game for me. It's probably not the best game. There are other games that are definitely contenders. I would argue, like right now, on that level, for that kind of game, the best game is Bloodborne. And the reason why, don't want to get too much off the beaten path here, is the story on that one is something else. It starts out Victorian horror, vampires and werewolves. Then it slowly progresses by bringing on board aliens until you realize the whole thing is just one big H.P. Lovecraft mess of insanity. It is, to this day, the best H.P. Lovecraft video game ever made. And it's not advertised that way at all. I mean, still, a lot of people don't realize, a lot of H.P. Lovecraft fans don't realize that there is this game called Bloodborne, or if they've heard of Bloodborne, they've never made the association. But that's what it is. And it is unofficial. But no, there's no doubt about it. I mean, it is completely H.P. Lovecraft soaked. It is so cool. Okay. So, when Dark Souls came out, it had a small amount of advertisement. And this is what I have to confess. If it wasn't for marketing advertisement, I wouldn't even know about these games. I'm not going to be a complete hypocrite here. But this was very, very little advertisement. It was just a small article on some online gaming magazine. I keep thinking, I keep remembering myself doing this, though. So I keep wanting to say to myself that I picked up a gaming magazine down at the GameStop or something when I was living in Hollywood. But surely I was looking at it online. Maybe I was flipping this way and then I went to online, but whatever. I was sold. What got me was it advertised itself as a game of great difficulty, but one that was very punishing, but yet rewarding for players who, whatever, you know. Okay, that was good. That was good enough. I think I got the gist of it. So I set about to find out how to find the game. I went down, as kind of said before, to said GameStop, which is on Santa Monica and La Brea when I lived in Hollywood. And yeah, they had Dark Souls, but they also had that used copy of Demon Souls. And I'd read that Demon Souls was the successor to Dark Souls. So okay, I figured, hey, let's start at the beginning. All right, it's cheaper. If I hate this, why would I want to pay full price for something that is just more of that? Maybe it's an improvement, but we'll make that judgment call later. Let's start at the beginning. It's cheaper. It's the way to go anyways. And it is the way to go. Oh my gosh, the only way to play these games is to start at Demon Souls, is to work your way forward. It gets a little nutty though, because of the family tree starts doing this. And Demon Souls is now the most recent Souls game. Yeah, you heard me right. It was the first, now it's the most recent. Maybe I'll explain why, but you should probably already know why. You should probably be able to figure out why. So, yeah, Dark Souls was great. And I really have to talk about this. One of the things that's so interesting about Dark Souls is the concept of challenge and what it has done to challenge the gamer itself. It is a game of great replay value, and I think that this is to the detriment of the gaming companies on the whole. Maybe, maybe not. They've always got the upper hand. They've got the ability to convince and persuade more people than I ever can. So they mostly have the upper hand by just having people constantly looking for brand new games and buying new experiences instead of trying to figure out how to take what they've already purchased and get a brand new experience and save their money. So a lot of players do these challenge runs, and I think it started with what we call soul level 1 runs. I don't want to get too into this, folks, but the idea is that you never level your character up. Your character never increases internally in power, but you are allowed to get your weapons as powerful as you possibly can under the restrictions that you can't increase your level, your character level. This became a meme. It started out only because people wanted to be able to invade other people online in their game. Miyazaki designed Demon Souls in such a way, and he didn't tell people this, kind of hinted but didn't straight out tell people, that yeah, if you do the right things, you can invade other players that are also online under the right conditions. And you can troll them. You can kind of be a bully in a way. And you may be thinking to yourself, well, this is horrible, right? What a toxic swamp ground of a system that this person is laying forth. But please, please, please hear me out. Things balance themselves out very, very well in these games, believe it or not. What comes around goes around. It's all part of the system. The important thing is that he didn't tell anybody about this. So all of the online action in this game, the interaction, has been pretty much community discovered and community dictated in a sense. Wow, it gets very, very, very involved. But I'm trying to keep this very, very, very simple. So right now, what we're dealing with was back in the day, if you kept your character super, super low, then you could invade low-level characters, but beat them up with high-level gear. And please don't read too much into this. It was a very, very small kind of thing. The character has to be doing something, has to set themselves up in the right position to be eligible to be invaded in the first place. It's not just gung-ho, wild kind of craziness. It really has to be revolving around usually them trying to cheat. Now, cheating the whole concept of cheating. This game has flipped it and turned it around upside down, and I really hope to get into that. Maybe I should just say it right now, because now we have to talk about speedrunners. Speedrunners are the people who want to play this game and to beat the game offline under certain circumstances as quickly as possible. As quickly as possible. So right now, there's a category that's called all bosses. So, the bosses are all of the milestones that you have to get past to progress to certain other areas in the game, culminating to one final big boss. When you beat that big boss, that's the end of the game. If you just make any path you can to get to that big boss and complete the game, that's called 80%. But if you make it such that you have to kill all of the bosses, and then the final boss, that's called all bosses. And right now, I think the world record for that is right around 60 minutes, 1 hour, roughly. That's insane. That's absolutely insane. This is a game that takes most people like a week to get through. 5 days, you can get through this game blind maybe in 5 days if you're just every day, 8 hours a day. Which again, why you're playing a video game to do this to have fun, not. But you see, this game has definitely raised the bar for challenges. Oh my God, people want to challenge themselves on this game so much and have these trophies that show that they've got challenges. And there's even the in-game trophies themselves, which are very, very, very prestigious to have. But to have like a nice time in a speed run, or to have what they call a hitless run, where you've gone through the entire game without anybody ever hitting you, with their, like you're not taking any damage by somebody hitting you. That's an achievement. That's quite an achievement. And all of this came about really because people wanted to make Soul Level 1 characters just to invade people. And then you see that got forgotten about, and people kind of heard, oh, it's a Soul Level 1. It was like a big challenge, so they started doing Soul Level 1 runs because, well, that's the big challenge, right? In Dark Souls. They think, okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. They get introduced to these challenges through Soul Level 1 runs. And just to complicate matters, Bloodborne, the lowest character you can start with is level 4. And those are called blood levels so this is the BL4 run instead of SL1. It gets a little ridiculous. But the point I'm trying to get across is that the replay value in these games is just staggering. So when Dark Souls 2 was released, that's when it all came crashing down. Or conversely, that's when it all came crashing up. That's when the profits started soaring. That's when people really started pouring into this game. The funny thing is that Dark Souls 2 was radically different than Dark Souls 1 and Demon Souls. And I must say that the feel of these games is, to me, is just so satisfying. The way Dark Souls 1 feels is absolutely satisfying. It's really hard to describe, but the interaction is just butter. Dark Souls 2, it took me years to finally realize that Dark Souls 2 is like Dark Souls 1 but underwater. Everything has a kind of a slow feel to it. And once you kind of realize that, slow yourself down a little bit, I think you're able to interact with the game a little bit more successfully, and the game is more enjoyable. You're successful. You can kick ass more. Dark Souls 2 drove a rift in the community. It drew a visible rift. There already was a rift. I don't think a lot of people realized when Dark Souls came out. A lot of Demon Souls fans didn't like Dark Souls 1. I know this because I talked to them, and they told me thusly. And they actually felt that Dark Souls 2 was more of a true spiritual successor, predecessor, whatever, to Demon Souls than Dark Souls 1. I'm okay with that. This is completely subjective. And, in many ways, I kind of feel junior to these Demon Souls players because they were doing this way before I got into Dark Souls and Demon Souls. Which, by the way, I played Demon Souls and Dark Souls about parallel with each other. I figured what I would do is I would use the game guide to help me get through Demon Souls, and then I wanted to play Dark Souls blind. And the reason why, and again, a lot of people really insist on playing Dark Souls games blind. They don't want any help. Conversely, you also see a lot of people on Twitch in the chat room just giving people help even though they don't want it. But people want to play this game live because they want to immerse themselves into that role-playing experience. And you see, Dark Souls kind of subverts those expectations. It's really an arcade game, I believe. I believe Dark Souls plays better as an arcade game. And I think that if you try to exhaust the game of its replay value, I mean, people put thousands of hours into these games, thousands of hours. You do start to feel like you're playing an arcade game more. People get caught in these little rifts where they feel like they have to level their character up to get past this area. Oh, I'm just not powerful enough to get past this boss in this area, so I need to grind and gain experience and use that to raise levels. That's not how this game works. Because again, people play it, at the lowest level characters with the basest level weapons, and they've beaten all the bosses. It's about figuring out what is called the move sets, like the attacks, the boss's attacks that they will throw at you. You've got to learn how to interact with them, find your openings, exploit those openings, and survive the ramifications that come afterwards. Rinse and repeat. What's it called? Red hands? Slapsies? The slapping game? Sorry if that was too loud. That is Dark Souls. That's the Dark Souls games. When you're fighting an enemy, most people, when you're playing this game, you want to attack first. All right, that's the strategy. Hit first, hit hard, strike first. Don't let them hit you back, This game, you really want to let them attack first because you have a shield that you can block. Let them waste their stamina and their energy hitting a piece of metal instead of your flesh, and then counterattack. It's really simple. The game, as you progress, though, enemies will start to punish you for that. And you start to learn more, how do I say it, more advanced techniques. You start to get more advanced skills. When I first played Demon Souls, I was like this. Hiding behind my shield, poking my little pokey stick. Trying to get through the game that way. Now I'm like running around, just chopping like a ninja. Running out of the ceiling, doing parkour all over the place because I've watched other people who are so much better than me do that, and I've learned from them. So that's a great thing about what we're dealing with here is that as time goes forward, we as gamers are able to be better than the ones before us because we can watch each other play. That's how they were doing it back in the day. All of the really, really top coin-op players eventually would get together and kind of disclose their secrets with each other. And that's what we're able to do on Twitch right now. But, Dark Souls 2, I was highly disappointed in it. After I played it, I absolutely hated it. We could go, I don't want to go into reasons why. I do want to say, though, that I've come back, and I love Dark Souls 2. Once I realized that the reasons why I hated Dark Souls were the very things that I understood about Dark Souls 1. I was victim to them now. Dark Souls 1 taught me these lessons, and I failed them in Dark Souls 2. And I failed them again in Dark Souls 3, but that's another story. When Bloodborne came out, I did buy a PlayStation 4 just to play Bloodborne. It's what they call, it's a true PlayStation exclusive. At this point, they realize, wow, we've got a moneymaker. But hey, you know what? Like I said before, Bloodborne is a masterpiece game. You could say there's a certain aspect of it that's weak, the Chalice Dungeons, but I would argue, no, you just waited too long before you did the Chalice Dungeons. You're supposed to do them a lot earlier. You're supposed to do them like after you beat the third boss. You're supposed to already be going into the Chalice Dungeons and checking them out. And I had to say it, I'm sorry, but, as I said before, people get into this trap of wanting to sit here and like grind and kill the same mobs and enemies over and over and over in an area to get more souls so they can level up to beat the boss. Well, Bloodborne gave you the Chalice Dungeons. You could open up a random Chalice Dungeon and just have all of this sort of random new gameplay and get a bunch of loot and experience that way instead of doing this boring crap over and over. This put you to sleep. Oh my God, why waste your time doing that? Wasted time. So Bloodborne, in my opinion, was a huge success. There are rumors that it's going to get a remake like Demon Souls for the PlayStation 5. So yeah, what's up with that? Demon Souls is now the latest one because it was remade for the PlayStation 5 and it looks gorgeous. It's a little weird. It's different. There's parts of it I'm like, I wish they hadn't have done that. But no, for the most part, yeah, cool. Dark Souls 3. See, this is when and it's not because of the game itself. I'm not a Dark Souls 3 hater, but see, right now, people forget the release of Dark Souls 3. Just the utter crap that it was. And man, I should have just boycotted the game. It would have been Don Quixote. I would have been Don Quixote hitting a windmill with my lance, if that's really how that metaphor goes down. But pointless, totally pointless. What happened? I got to back up a little bit. You see, I did have this privilege that I was capitalizing on. When I lived in New York and Los Angeles, you could find certain stores that would sell releases about 3-4 days before the rest of the population got them. Most new things come out on Tuesday, right? Monday or whatever. Some of these stores you could go in on Friday and purchase them. It got to a point to where Twitch was punishing people for streaming these games over that weekend prematurely because like you're not supposed to do that. Really? I mean, I legally purchased this game. I mean, it wasn't like, maybe they weren't supposed to sell it or whatever, but come on, man. Get over it, seriously. So, yeah, I enjoyed this little bit of privilege of getting some of these games before a lot of other players did. And again, you just got like three days, that's it, right? When Dark Souls 3 came out, I mean, they hit it with a lot of money. They hit this game with a lot of marketing, a lot of advertising, and in my opinion, it is the crappiest game out of the series. Absolutely. A lot of people that love this game so much, what I find the common denominator is that they never played Bloodborne. And they don't realize, that, this game is just a Bloodborne ripoff. It's Bloodborne through Dark Souls with all the Dark Souls tropes and memes, and it's total fan service. It's linear AF. It just breaks all of the fun. Yeah, okay. I mean, I'm being kind of unfair, but what happened right when they released the game is they found all of like a lot of the top Twitch streamers, gamers, and they gave the game to these people like 1 or 2 weeks before the rest of the population. Craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. These privileged people got to have this game before the rest of everybody else, and it was like, it just wasn't cool, man. Why should they? I mean, squirrels chasing each other around the tree right now. That is so cute. Oh my. Maybe you can hear that? Now they're back in the grass. Okay. I would turn the camera, but I realized by the time I turned the camera, they would be gone. That's Murphy's Law for you right there. And that totally put a bad taste in my mouth. Bad taste in my mouth going forward when I played Dark Souls 3. Got the game, played it. It's like, yeah. So after that, the Souls games started to become like, they started to permeate throughout the gaming industry. In some good ways and in some bad ways. In some ways they're cool because they are increasing difficulty, increasing the need to the want to have better skill in a game. But at the same time, not really. You see, we're still dealing with the cutscene crowd. One thing that I loved about the Dark Souls games is that they broke away from the cutscenes. Yeah, there are cutscenes in the game, but you can pretty much skip them all, and they're really, really, really not. They don't have a lot of gravity and weight in the actual gameplay itself. You do want to watch them. But the problem with cutscenes is that when it comes to replay value, they detract from replay value, especially if you're forced to watch the entirety of them. If you cannot skip a cutscene, then that's eventually going to detract from the replay value, and you better bet you better sorry, you can bet your money that the people that are behind the direction of these games are doing that on purpose. You ever go watch movies from the 70s? Go back and watch, in the 70s, the early 80s. Look around the 28 to 32 minute mark. Somewhere like right around the 30, we'll say 25 to 35 minutes. Every single one of these movies, someone pulls out a cigarette and starts smoking it. The reason why is because they were showing this in the theater, and they knew that people who smoke cigarettes, which is a lot of people, that were watching that in the theater, would instinctively want to go out and get a smoke. And they would probably want to go out, and purchase some products while they were out getting a smoke. What are you spending your money on, people? Are you spending money so that somebody can subvert you to do something else, right? And to prey upon your weaknesses? Or are you spending money to get rid of some stress and have fun and play a game? See what I'm saying? So ultimately what this boils down to is that here we have this game that had this impact, and it eventually got washed back into the machine itself. Why? The reason why is because consumers are just not educated right now. Consumers are not educated enough to know that people are lying to them, or if they're not straight out lying to them, they're preying upon them, preying upon their expectations, and using that to sell a product that they want. But instead of giving them a product that they can use for 10 years, they want you to have to buy it over and over and over and over. Folks, it is up to you to stop that from happening. Because they're not going to stop it from happening. They're going to make so much money off of you by doing this. Imagine if they could turn you into a product, right? Or in order for you to keep living year after year, you had to keep having an upgrade. Yep. So on that note, YouTube, I bid you fair day, and I hope that you make the right choice.